Just waiting to go live here on Facebook as well. Okay, I think we are live. So I'm coming on here. For those of you who don't know about the Worthy Collective, we basically have this Q&A component where the women inside the membership can submit questions at any time and ask like in real time what they're going through and just basically get mentorship, get coaching. So I have these questions that were submitted and I'm going to go through each one. If you're not inside the Worthy Collective, I will leave a link. You can do a 7-day free trial. Basically, what it is a membership and a space for women to come together and be poured into. We dive into different topics each month, different themes. So anything from inner child healing, which just so happened to be our theme and topic this month, feminine energy, masculine energy, abundance, manifestation, energetics, relationships, money, career, like everything that you can think of. We focus on a theme and a topic each month. So I have a 7-day free trial for anyone who wants to come in. You'll get access to our inner child healing call that we just did, the meditation that comes with it, to see if it's something that you want to be a part of. So I'll make sure to leave a link after this wraps up to in case you want to try that. So I have these questions, and these questions, basically the Q&A form that the women inside the Worthy Collective receive is you can ask something that's based on the topic or the theme for the month, or it can be anything else, and you can submit it anonymously. I'll be able to see who it is, but essentially, like me reading these questions out loud, I'm reading them from an anonymous standpoint, and I'm just going to give you answers based on how I would answer for my coaching clients, like in my deeper containers. And some of it may not always make sense, and I'll try to go in depth with it as much as I can. But my main thing is I am just going to tune in and allow myself to kind of get out of the way and whatever wants to come through with these questions. So we'll go ahead and start with the first one. So the first question is, I feel like I'm always giving to everyone else in my life and never have time for myself. It's hard for me, even when I do have any spare time, to spend it on me, and usually when I do, I feel too exhausted to even do something for myself when I have a moment. How do I set boundaries or pour more into me without feeling guilty? So whoever asked this, this is like very common, and I actually see this a lot, especially the moms that I coach in our group. A lot of them struggle with this like feeling of, I feel guilty for taking time for myself. I feel guilty for like putting up boundaries with the kids or with the family to do something for me. And this definitely is something that you have to, like, you'll probably have to practice this like over and over and over again to really solidify boundaries. And what I would say to this person specifically, if you're just trying to figure out where to even, like, how to even start with setting boundaries, is where can you set boundaries in your life that maybe are really, I guess I would say, like, easier areas to set boundaries in your life, more so maybe than like the big things in your life, and practicing doing that in those small areas and feeling the energy of what that feels like in your body. Because if you're feeling guilty when you're trying to set boundaries for yourself, or when you're trying to like put yourself first in some situations, if you're feeling like these negative emotions that are tied to it, if you're trying to do that with like a really big circumstance or situation when you haven't built up the reps to do that, it's going to feel really intense in your body. And sometimes, depending on where your nervous system sits at, whether it's like higher, closer to the sympathetic, where it's constantly kicking in fight or flight and it's like very dysregulated, if you try to do something like setting boundaries when you haven't been setting boundaries your entire life, your nervous system is obviously going to feel like it's unsafe to do so. And a lot of times, depending on where you're sitting at, and if you have not done any nervous system regulation, your nervous system will override you. It will basically take back control of whatever you're trying to, like whatever change you're trying to make. It will take back control, and through many different ways. It can show up in many different ways, where it basically puts you back in safety, what it considers safety, because there's an underlying subconscious belief that you have about setting boundaries, about feeling like you need to maybe constantly mediate every single situation, where like you don't like feeling like you're letting other people down. Like there may be some kind of deeper belief under that. And when you have that, what ends up happening is your nervous system responds to that subconscious belief. Therefore, that's why you may be now in a point of your life where you're really struggling to set any kind of boundary. You feel like your family walks all over you. Maybe you feel like even your extended family, anytime someone needs something, you're the first person they ask, and you're the first person to say yes, regardless of what you need or what's going on in your life. So if you're trying to make a huge drastic change, just understand that your nervous system is going to default to what it has always done, based on, again, what's been driving it is the subconscious belief. So the best way that you can start to implement boundaries is start practicing in different areas of your life, whether it feels like a really small area of your life that you can start setting the boundary. And then when your nervous system starts to feel unsafe in that situation, becoming aware of that, but also becoming aware of like how unsafe does it feel. If it feels like really, really intense, then maybe you need to bring it back down and try setting a boundary somewhere that feels a little more safe to do so. But if you can find that happy medium of when you do try to set a boundary and your nervous system is freaking out, but it feels like you have enough awareness to you can see what's going on, then it's like, okay, let me either do some nervous system regulation, maybe let's journal about what's coming up for me. And that's how you start to work through it. That's how you start to build the reps, and that's how you can start to shift your beliefs, the underlying belief that you have around setting boundaries. You can start to shift that into a belief that actually you want to carry, that actually you want to have, regarding setting boundaries for yourself. So I hope that helps with that question. The next question that we have is, I've been in fight or flight for so long, I feel like I don't even know how to not feel so anxious all the time. Where do I even start? Okay, so I teach a lot about nervous system regulation, and one of the things that we dive into in one of my programs is I talk about basically your nervous system thermostat, and being able to identify where your nervous system sits at its like homeostasis, basically. Because when you think about a thermostat, you think of like the bottom of the thermostat to the top of the thermostat. I compare it to the bottom of it being your parasympathetic, which is your calm state. It's your nervous system in a relaxed state. And then the top of that is your sympathetic nervous system, which is basically the fight or flight zone. Now, if you, depending, okay, your nervous system over time, like if it's constantly being put into sympathetic, again, that fight or flight mode, and it's finding situations in your day to day that feel like life or death, regardless of if they are, right? Like, we'll be in situations at work, and unless you're working like as a nurse or an ER nurse or something, but like let's just say you're working in a corporate office, you oftentimes you'll feel like you're in a life or death situation, like your body is communicating life or death, like survival mode, and it's jumping into that sympathetic state. If it's constantly being wired to look for life or death and be put in fight or flight all the time, it's never coming back down into the parasympathetic. So let's say in the morning you immediately like spike your sympathetic nervous system because of traffic in the morning. Like, you get really frustrated and get really like worked up over traffic, so it puts you in that sympathetic state. And then instead of coming back down and regulating, coming back down, you get to work and immediately you have like 50 to-dos on your task for that day, and you're freaking out because a lot of them are high pressure situations that you have to complete and you have to get done, otherwise your boss is going to get mad. Therefore, like, your brain is thinking, if my boss gets mad, I could get fired. If I get fired, then I don't have money to live. So you're seeing how it's constantly communicating life or death, and it's staying in that sympathetic state instead of coming back down into parasympathetic. So then what ends up happening is it starts to become dysregulated because there's not a healthy regulation process that happens with your nervous system. It's just always staying in this sympathetic range. So your homeostasis, instead of coming back down into parasympathetic, you're sitting somewhere in between. And so if you always feel like you're in fight or flight, it's likely because you're sitting in that in between dysregulated state. And if your nervous system or your body finds what it perceives to be as a threat in your day to day, you're working with a really small window of perceiving the threat and shooting up into sympathetic. Whereas if you were starting in parasympathetic and something happens that is maybe something you don't prefer, maybe it is kind of like emergency mode, what it's communicating to the body, or whatever it may be, if you're sitting at a parasympathetic when that happens, you have a lot more, like, a range to work with before you're fully in your sympathetic state. So if you are never coming back into parasympathetic, that's why you're always going to feel like you're in fight or flight, because your nervous system is never regulating out of it. So let me know if that makes sense. But as far as like where you would start, you have to really start to become aware of how your body is feeling throughout the day. Like, even when it's not experiencing these situations, but just like when it's in its homeostasis. So one of the first things that I always recommend my clients to do when they're starting this work is to set a timer for every single hour of the day. And every time that this timer goes off, you're checking in with your actual body, and you're checking in, seeing how it just feels. And that's really all you're doing, is you're just collecting data of how does my body feel right now, every single hour. And if you want, you can take it a step further and try and see if is there something going on right now that is like a reason why I'm feeling a little more anxious, or am I just sitting here doing my daily task and I feel anxious no matter what. If that's the case, like, you for sure at least want to get that data. But if that's the case, then there are plenty of modalities that you can start implementing in your day to day. And I have the 7-day nervous system reset that specifically gives you modalities you can implement in your life today. It doesn't require a ton of time. Like, you can take 5 minutes out of your day for the 7 days to learn different modalities of how you can start to regulate your nervous system and bring it back down to the parasympathetic state. Because ultimately what you want to do is you want that to be your regular. You don't want to be sitting up here in this dysregulated state or really close to the sympathetic state. you want to start to bring it down, bring it down, bring it down, and you have to intentionally train it to do so, because up until this point, however old you are, however long it's been, you've been training it to do the opposite, which is look for threats everywhere you turn, and it's perceiving threats that aren't even there. So that's where I would start, is figuring out where your body's sitting every single day, like just developing that awareness of how your body is even feeling, and then implementing short modalities, whether it's some kind of breath work, like shake and release movement, like orienting. I have a list of different modalities that you can try and apply in my 7-day nervous system reset, and it's only $7 to join that. Okay, the last question is, I know I'm meant for more, but I feel so disconnected from my purpose. I've heard you talk about this before, about having this deeper knowing that I'm meant to be doing something more, but right now I feel really stuck in my job and like there's no way out. First of all, I want to acknowledge that you're not alone in feeling that. And to be honest with you, I really felt that heavily in the last 5 years of my life, where I felt like no matter what path I was like trying to do and figure out, like it never felt like I actually was truly lit up by it, at least for not like a long time. And there was this like deep inner knowing that I had, and maybe this is what you're talking about, of I know there's like a bigger purpose. I know I'm meant for something more than just going to college for 4 years and doing a 9 to 5 and working at the same place for the rest of my life. Like, to me, I worked in a clinic in college because I thought I was going to do physical therapy. And I remember working in the clinic, and it wasn't very long until I realized how much it like sucked the life out of my soul. Not to be dramatic. And but I needed that. I needed that experience to recognize that that was not the path for me. And it ultimately came about like I was doing thing after thing after thing, trying to figure out what lit me up and what felt aligned for me, only to either find out that that wasn't for me, I didn't like it, what like whatever it was. And what I will say now, like 5 years later, really being able to see things full circle now, is if you feel like you're stuck in your life and you crave more, like you know you're meant for more, but you have no idea what it is, you have no idea like how to even get there. I realize looking back now in my own journey that there was a pattern that I was following, and I didn't realize it until now, knowing where I'm at now, where I really do feel super lit up by what I do. I feel like my work that I do is very purpose driven, and led by my soul. Is the thing that I did over the course of the 5 years is anytime I got very curious or very excited about something, no matter how small, I always did it. I always followed that. And what I realize now, like looking back, is those were nudges from my higher self. Those were breadcrumbs to my purpose. And the thing that, seeing this pattern, like looking back now, I recognize it, but here's the mistake I made when I was doing it, that if I can help you not make the same mistake, is follow those breadcrumbs every single time, but release your idea or expectation of what you think the outcome needs to be from that. That was the thing that like really messed with my head a lot of the times, is because I was following these breadcrumbs and thinking that, oh my gosh, I'm super excited, I'm super curious about this thing, I think this is the thing for me. And then I would do it and I would learn a lot, whatever like my experience was with it, but I would get to a point where I was like, this isn't it anymore. And I would get really in my head about it and think that, like, I would start thinking that, oh my gosh, like, people are going to think I'm a quitter, that I'm a failure, that, like, I can never stick to a job, like I can never stick to a business idea. Like all of these stories were running in my head, and I was putting so much pressure on myself to figure out what I was meant to be doing and to find the answer, when really I was doing that the whole time. But it required me to get experience. It required me to learn different things. It required me to go through ultimately these life prerequisites to take with me to the thing that is actually my purpose, and have embodied wisdom for whoever I was going to be serving in the future. So I understand so much when you say you feel like you're stuck and maybe you're working at a job that is like soul sucking for you. I've been there multiple times. And what I would say is the more you can tune into those little nudges and those breadcrumbs that are being fed to you, with again, without any kind of expectation, without any kind of, oh, I need to know what this is, I need to know what this is going to look like. It's just, no, like, the breadcrumbs that are given to you, follow them, because ultimately the more you follow the breadcrumbs, or the nudges, the faster you will be put on your correct path. Because ultimately, when you're doing that, you're communicating to your higher self, I'm trusting you, I am allowing you to guide me, and I'm following the nudges or the breadcrumbs that you're giving me. Okay, like, I'm following that, I trust you. And before you know it, like, if that's the mindset that you have and that's the intention that you have, before you know it, you're going to be pulled out of that job that you hate, or things are going to start rearranging in your life where you're no longer in a job that doesn't light you up anymore. Like, a new opportunity is going to come around. And, okay, it says your live stream is experiencing performance. Okay, so following those breadcrumbs and doing that over and over and over again with like this deep trust from your higher self. And I've seen this happen so many times with my clients. Obviously, it's happened in my life too, but like, if you just start living your life every single day with that intent of, I'm tuning in, I'm listening to the messages that you're trying to give to me, and anytime you give me a message, I will receive it fully and I will take action on it with full trust in that this is meant for me, or this is what you want me to do, this is the action that you want me to take. I'm telling you, if you start to do that, watch how fast your life is going to change. It will change and rearrange so fast that you won't even know what to do. Like, I've had so many clients this last year, like in our 6-month group coaching containers, within months of them doing the work, like, life is starting to rearrange. And it's crazy because I've had women that are like, yeah, I've been at this job for this amount of time, and now, like, it's like literally getting rearranged out of my life. And it's like, yes, because you are shifting your identity, you are starting to take more aligned action. Therefore, the universe is going to remove things out of your life that are no longer aligned with you. That's literally how the universal law works. And it's exciting. It's exciting to see that as a coach and see the, like, literally the reality is shifting around them, which is everything I teach, where it's like we do all of the internal work and the reality around us shifts. It's not about trying to change physical reality around us and make changes there. It's all internal, and then the reality starts to warp itself around you to align with who you are becoming. And I've seen this with multiple clients, and sometimes it's scary because it's like, this is big change. This is a big shift happening, a chapter closing that I wasn't expecting this suddenly. And so then when that happens, we work through that. We use some of the modalities that I teach in our containers, where it's like, okay, you're like in this in-between stage of old self and new self, and we're trying to close the gap right now. The universe is obviously closing the gap with you. Let's create safety in the body and teach our body to feel safe in this shift. So there's a lot that goes into it. But I hope that helps as far as like feeling stuck with where you're at right now. It can be, if it could be about a job, it could be about a relationship, just your overall life in general. And ultimately, when you do feel stuck, uh, shift your perspective. It's not inherently bad that you feel stuck. When you feel stuck, take it as, what is my higher self trying to communicate right now? Because if things get really heightened in your life to where you're feeling an emotion really intensely about your life, about a situation, like whatever it is, to the point where you feel like you can't ignore it, it's because your higher self's trying to get your attention. And it's like, hey, like, it's time, like, this isn't where we're supposed to be at anymore. Like, we're meant to shift out of this. So take it as a sign. Again, it's not inherently bad, but it's an invitation to ask yourself, what either what lesson am I meant to be learning? What action am I meant to be taking that I'm maybe afraid to take? What do I need to do differently? Type of thing. So I hope that was helpful. If you want to have your questions answered in the future live, I'm going to be doing these once a month, these Q&A lives from the Worthy Collective. Again, you can join the Worthy Collective, get a 7-day free trial. You'll get access to our first inner child healing call that we did. You'll get access to the Q&A form that I have for the members in our group. So I invite you to try that out and see if it's something that you want to be a part of. But otherwise, I hope that even if you're in the Worthy Collective or not, you found value from this live.